Thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar, Mapping Techniques for Great Outdoor Lighting Image Projection with Marcus Persson and Robert Svensson. My name is Lane Shannon and I'm a content marketing manager here at Harman. Just a few things before we get started. Everyone on the call is muted to keep down noise levels. However, there is a Q&A function where you can submit questions to the presenter and they will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end. This webinar is also being recorded and the link will be made available a few days after the presentation. We do have a number of other webinars taking place over the next few months for audio, lighting, video, and control, and we encourage you to take a look at the different sessions we have in our workshop series, Learn Sessions workshop series on pro.harman.com, as well as martin.com, and our Harman professional training page to see our many on-demand and certification courses that are always available to you free of charge. And now I'd like to introduce you to the presenters for today's webinar. In 1994, Marcus Persson started Creative Technique when projects were about touring with artists around the world. Eventually, the event sector came, and for the past 15 years, it has been all about permanent light installations. With years of experience and a love of light, Marcus enjoys every new challenge. Passionate about creating great lighting products, Robert Svensson joined the Harman Professional Solutions architectural lighting team in 2014. Now, as a product manager, Robert is responsible for managing a wide range of products and solutions. And now I'll pass it over to you, Marcus and Robert.
Thank you, Lane. Thanks. Okay, welcome to this webinar. We will spend the next 50 minutes or so, and that's so we will have some time for Q&A. So just feel free, as Lane said, to give us some good questions. So today's topic is about image projection. And hopefully we can give you some inspiration, but not only inspire you, but also give you some tips and tricks how to make image projection in an outdoor space successful. So we have an agenda here. We want to talk a little bit about why at all. Why do we want to work with image projection? What is the difference? What are the pros and cons between analog, GoPro-based image projection and digital video projection? Which is another method. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we'll make a brief introduction to the products that Martin offer. Of course, there are other products on the market as well that do similar, that has similar functionality. But again, talking about the products also opens up the understanding of what are the possibilities and also what are the limitations. Then we'll go a bit deeper into the process of getting to the result at the end. So we'll talk a little bit about how to calculate beam diameter and illuminance levels, and also more things that are pretty smart to consider in this design process, and also a little bit about how you actually get the GoPros created at the end. And then finally, Marcus will talk about a couple of recent projects he has been doing, and also really go into the details about how it was all achieved. And then, as said, hopefully we'll have some time for question and answers. So why image projection? I guess it's definitely more than just projecting a company logo. Of course, that's still a possibility, but let's say that's the easy part, and that's probably what we have seen in many places. And we want to, in this webinar, try and promote a lot more that can be done with image projection, because you can do a lot of storytelling. It can be used more as in an artistic way, as adding layers to a building and being more creative. And in fact, we also seen a few examples where projects were so critical in terms of glare and really mapping the light precisely to a specific part of the building. So it was just used more like a profile fixture to map the light on an exact place on the building, which would not have been possible using a traditional wash light solution. So that's actually another solution. But if you look at the couple of pictures to the right here, it's a fairly old installation, and some of you might have seen these images before, but it's still a very good representation of what we're going to talk about today. So it's a factory that is located close to a highway, and they have this facade along the highway, and they had a good opportunity to use this facade for really promoting their company. And on the lower right picture, we see the name of the company. It's called Boligbeton, and this is created by the use of I think it's 10 pieces of image projectors, each image projector projecting one letter in the name of the company. However, since these image projectors contains more gobos, it's also possible then to change the gobo, and what we see on the upper right picture is now the same image projectors now telling the story about what is this factory actually producing. It's using some raw material to produce concrete elements that are then transported to a building site, and at the end you have a house or building fully constructed. So that's a very nice cartoon style way of really telling what is this factory doing, and otherwise it would have been this dull, boring facade at night time. So I think it's still a very good example of what can be done with let's say a reasonable budget. They get a great effect. And that kind of brings me to the next slide, because I guess we all seen, we've probably been somewhere around the world where we have seen a example of digital projection on a building, and we've seen these crazy images and movies with buildings collapsing and all kind of stuff that is being projected on a building, and of course it looks really, really amazing. However, you often only find this in temporary installations, so more for a light festival or whatever happening in a town. And why is that? Why don't we see it so much as permanent install? And there are a number of reasons, and that's also why we believe there's a market and there's room for, let's say, more traditional analog image projection, which this webinar is about. And the reasons are that, first of all, the cost of these huge video projectors are typically fairly high. The cost to purchase them or to rent them, to install them, it is expensive equipment. And also, even though of course there's also a lot of development in terms of video projection, still the lighting output is still limited. So often you will see in these bigger installations that you need to stack the projectors. So you have two projectors illuminating the same part of the building simply to increase the output. So of course that suddenly means that your cost is double. And then on top of this, most of these video projectors are not really designed for outdoor use. So you would need to figure out how to protect them from the weather, either to maybe build a shed or find an additional enclosure. And this enclosure then even most likely needs to be climate controlled, because these projectors will have limited specification in terms of ambient temperature and in terms of humidity. And then when you get everything up running, you can have some rather costly the lamp life, the filters needs to be changed, the power consumption is also rather high. So it all really sums up and becomes super expensive. And I guess that's also, as I said, that's why we only see this fantastic tool used in more temporary solutions. But what we talk about today is definitely something that can be used in a more permanent situation. So look at a couple of examples of such permanent installations, and this one also fairly old. It's actually very old. It's back from 2009 in Abu Dhabi. Some of you might have been there. It's a fantastic site to visit if you ever get the chance, the Grand Mosque, and it's a good example because it also shows how you can work with a traditional wash light. That's what gives the blue color on the building, and then add the image projection as a layer on top of the wash lights. And that's what you see here, what you recognize here with this sky or this cloud that is fairly subtle, you can say. But this cloud formation now moves very slowly. It drifts all the time. It drifts to one side and creates some animation on this huge building. And of course, you have multiple image projectors. They are actually located. If I take here, you see these towers here. All these towers hides all the lighting installation, including wash lights and image projectors. And this has now been running for 13 years. Originally, it was our product was a discharge version, but now it has been updated with LED solution. So of course, the maintenance cost has also come down dramatically. But again, it's a very good example of a really huge scale project that uses a very subtle way, but still giving a lot of dramatic effect to the building by having these clouds drifting slowly at night time. A couple of years ago, as another example, we had a little competition we called Light a London Landmark in London, where we were so honored to be able to use the National Theatre for our canvas for projecting images. And we actually placed in this case, one piece of our exterior projection, 1,000 on the other side of the Thames, and it's actually 200-meter projection distance. So it was quite a stretch, and the projector is illuminating this part of the building. And then we invited different lighting specifiers to attend this competition and design a gobo that had a history behind it and used in best possible way mapping techniques to map this special structure, this very geometric structure of the National Theatre. So, and again, it was only one fixture, and these are the results of. So in this particular fixture, we can actually have 7 gobos, but here we see 6 of the results. And what we notice here, if we take maybe this example, is how perfectly these geometric shapes are aligned to the building structure. And that is exactly what we're going to discuss and explain. How can that be achieved? How can you make a gobo design that will map the building so perfectly? And that's also what we see on the other examples here. Of course, you can say the designers had really they had all the freedom to choose whatever design they wanted to project and what was the story behind it. But I don't want to get so much into the different storytelling behind it. But it's still some good examples of what can be done if you carefully work with your gobo design and take the building structure into account. So another example here. We are now in San Francisco, and it's a very huge greenhouse, a historical greenhouse. It's in the San Francisco Botanical Garden, and they have this beautiful building at daytime, but at nighttime nothing was really happening. So they also wanted to make the site an attractive place to come and visit at nighttime. So they installed. There are 2 sheds here, and in each of these sheds there are 5 pieces of our smaller unit, the exterior projection 500, so 10 pieces in total. And this is the result at nighttime, or one of the results, let's say. So again, it's a combination of wash lights that gives this magenta or purple blue color, and then on top we layer the image projection. And what you notice here is that how perfectly these 10 fixtures map together to form one large image, which are some flowers. So they actually took pictures of flowers and took the pictures into a graphic program and designed the gobos from the pictures of some of the flowers in the garden. And this was actually done by a company called Obscura, which are very knowledgeable about digital video projection. So this was the first time they tried to work with, let's say, this less sophisticated analog image projection, because the budget was not for video projection, and also it had to run for a very extended time. So they wanted a more budget-friendly solution. So in this case, Obscura, they actually use the same techniques as they use for digital video projection. So they did a laser scanning of the entire building and created a 3D model. And from there, with the knowledge about where the fixtures were positioned, they were able to understand how the gobos would hit the building, and also understand how the images would be distorted. And in that way, they could create, so there's an example here in the lower left corner of one of the gobos where you actually see some of the distortion in the gobo. So this is a butterfly. And by adding the distortion or the keystoning to the gobo, you can take that into account. So when it's projected on the building, in this case a curved facade, then or curved roof, then it will appear correctly on the building. It will be projected correctly on the building. So that's what is called keystoning. But the way they did it is definitely a nice method, but it's also a fairly complex method. So what we're going to promote and talk about today is I would say just as good method, but probably something that more people can realize rather than starting to laser scan a complete building. And that's actually what we see here on when we go to the next slide here. So this was, it was actually an event. It was a custom event at our distributor in Switzerland. So down at the distributor, they asked for permission for to project on the neighboring building. And what you notice here in this nearly daylight image or picture taken at daylight, you see we're actually projecting with one piece of the exterior projection 1000. And what we are projecting is what we call a grid gobo. So you'll notice that you have the circles and you have the grids. And with this information, we now understand that when the fixture is placed in this exact position, then the light will hit the building. And we also understand which part of the light will not hit the building. So this is the idea that Marcus will also talk more about, and what he has been doing in his projects is to use this grid gobo, as we call it, and map the building and get the information about where will the light hit the building. So when you chosen the position, you project it with the grid gobo, then you take a picture of the building from that position of the fixture. Now this picture you can add into a graphical program, and then in a different layer you can start building up your gobo. So of course you probably don't want to have your gobo with any information up here because it will just reach the sky. So you want to keep the gobo design within the part that actually reaches the building or hit the building. And there we see, in this case, it was Roscoe who helped out in this, one of the gobo manufacturers. So they did the design, and they also created the gobo. And of course, this is maybe, you can always discuss taste, but this was more demo situation, so maybe it's a little bit over the top. It's definitely very colorful, very dramatic, and you even notice that even the trees in the foreground are mapped and being part of this resulting image. And of course, you can also argue it's not realistic, because if you place the fixture here in this position, people would get blinded if they walked here. But still, for a demo event, it was very impactful and really helps understanding what are the possibilities. It's also maybe a little bit too much, in the sense that it's a very precise mapping. You see the windows frames are very mapped, and in general we would not recommend this to make the mapping so tight to the building elements. You can still map to the building elements, but this is just very sensitive for any kind of tolerances or any kind of wind or anything that would give a little disturbance, because you have to imagine it's a tiny gobo and you project on a long distance, and a little tolerance can risk that everything is a little bit offset and would not look as good. But I will talk a little bit more about these challenges that is good to understand when you work with analog image projection. So let's take a little deep dive, or not a deep dive, but just a brief introduction to the two products that we are having in the Martin range that can enable these kind of solutions. So it's the Exterior Projection 500 and 1000, and both of them are fully outdoor rated. So meaning they are designed for permanent outdoor use, and of course, maybe many people, when you talk about outdoor use, you will think about, oh, I need to have an IP rating, and I probably need IP66. And that's also super important, that the product is fully waterproof and dust proof, so you don't get anything inside the product. But it's not really the full story, because if you have a fixture that needs to be outside in an environment for years, then you need a bit more than just an IP rating. So that's why we also have our products designed and verified for a corrosion standard. That really, it's a fairly high corrosion standard. That means that the products can even be used in coastal areas or other places where you have a high salt content in the air, in the rain. So it basically means they will not start to corrode, so you will keep the same nice surface of the products. Another thing that, as a specifier, you should consider and think about is also the rating called IK, which is kind of a vandalism rating. So it means how big an impact can the fixture take without getting damaged. And typically, most fixtures, you can say the weakest point will be the front glass, obviously. And so basically, when you do the test, you take a metal ball and you throw it, or you more or less throw it at a certain distance, and then there are different weights, and IK8, it goes from IK1 to IK10. So this is a fairly high standard that really gives you some trust that this product will not break if somebody, let's say, throw a stone at it. And another thing that is rather important is also when you are dealing with products in an outdoor environment, we probably know it from street lighting, that you need to have a certain rating against spikes on the electrical network. So these products are rated up to 4,000 volts on the electrical network, and it also applies to the control signal, to the DMX signal. So even if we have a very high electrical spike on the DMX, the products will survive and continue functioning. And you get these spikes if you have thunderstorms and you have lightning. Even if the lightning is hitting very far away, these spikes can still travel in the electrical network for quite a distance. So it is a common issue in. So if you don't have products that are designed for that, then they will most likely fail. So and worth mentioning is that we provide 5 years warranty in these products. So that's kind of the basics. Then you of course want to have a good image projection, because the better image projection, the better visual quality, the better the contrast ratio you have, the more visible the image projection will actually appear, even if you have high ambient light levels. And of course, the high output also matters, but the combination of a high contrast ratio and a high output really means a lot. And then we talk about this multiple layers. As I said, this is not video projection. It is still working with gobos, but we have a number of layers in the fixtures that can help create a bit more animation than just projecting one logo or one image. So if you look at the Exterior Projection 500, you have to choose a beam angle. So it comes with a fixed beam angle. We have 4 different variants. We're going to talk a little bit about how you choose the right fixture. And it comes also with a set of standard gobos that of course can be used. But as we see here on the picture here, it's fairly easy. There's what we call a service lid at the top of the fixture, where you can open the product and insert a new gobo. And after, when you have done the insertion, then of course you seal the service lid, and there's a procedure to make sure that you get rid of the humidity, so you don't get humidity trapped inside the fixture. So that's part of the installation of new gobos. So talking about the 4 layers, well, we have 6 gobos, so that would be 1 layer. Then we have colors, So this fixture has color flags. It has 8 colors that you can add on top of the gobos. Then it has 2 prisms, meaning you can divide the image out into a 3-facet prism or a linear prism that more or less stretches the image. And then it also has what we call an animation effect that slides back and forth in front of the gobo and create this animated effect like a flag waving in the wind. So you get the gobos gets a bit animated, and it also features a frost flag, so you can add a soft frost on the gobo as well. If you look at the bigger brother, we have the Exterior Projection 1000. It's more or less the same product, you can say. It's just 3 times as much light output. It features a zoom, a motorized zoom, so you don't have to select a specific beam angle from the beginning. You can adjust the zoom to hit the building, and it also features a full color mixing system with CMY, so you can choose basically any color you like and make smooth transitions from one color to another, where you are a bit more limited on the small one that with 8 gobos. And then it has an additional gobo. So that's basically the toolbox you get. So having gobos and then having these different layers in terms of colors, prisms, and animation and frost to add a bit more life to the gobos themselves. Okay. I think this is the last example from my side. One thing is, which we'll go talk about in a moment, is sitting home in the office and doing the calculations. Where can I place the fixture? How much light will I have? How big will the beam diameter be? But of course, there's still a lot happens when you get on site. So that's really our recommendation. We have most of our distributors, they have a demo kit, meaning they have a flight case which fits one piece of the exterior projection, either the 500 and 1000. So you can fairly easily go out on site. Of course, you need to find some power, and then you can try to illuminate the building. That maybe you want to do that also to convince the owner or whoever or whoever are the stakeholders in the project that this is a good idea and it's a good investment. So in this case, we're projecting around 110 meter onto this building here, and this, in this case, we actually made a custom gobo. This is the logo for this. It's actually apartments. But what I like, and you also see there are a couple of wash lights. So the wash lights are creating the blue light, and the white from the image projector really cuts through the blue and really gives this nice crisp image on top of the building. But interesting is that with the same fixture, from the same distance, just working with the zoom, changing the gobo, zooming out, changing the color of the wash lights into this, orange type of wash light or color, then you get this very different result from the very same fixture. So it really shows some of the versatility using these type of fixtures. So let's get a bit more into the planning phase or the details, what to consider. And definitely one thing to consider is where will my light hit the facade or the canvas or the building. And it's good to have a rough idea before you start getting out there on site. And there are a number of methods to get that information or that understanding. One way could be to go to our website and go under the product page and download the specification sheet. So on the specification sheet, you will find a full page with a number of given distances to the projection surface, just to give you a rough idea. So in this case, I took the Exterior Projection 500 and I selected the medium beam angle, which is 22 degrees. And now I get this little table here. I can look at it in meters or in feet, and then I get the result in lux or in candela. And of course, also with the projection diameter, I get in meter and feet. So if I want to project at 20 meter, I will have a projected diameter of my gobo of 7.2 meter on the building, and I will have a center illuminance of 193 lux. So that gives me a pretty good idea of what I can expect. That would be one method. Another method would be to open the photometric information, which is also found on the product page. And from there, you can actually download a IS data or an Oilum data file, which can be used in programs such as Dialogs, where you can do, let's say, more precise calculations if you're familiar with those type of programs, because these data files contains all the photometric information we have measured for these products. But another method also coming from the photometric file is that if you want to project at another distance that are not listed here, then you simply have some small formulas that can help you as well. So you see here, there's a formula for calculating the diameter and one formula for calculating the illuminance. So I just try that over here. So I take those two formulas and then I use the 20 meter again, and I just insert 0.39 multiplied with 20 meter. That gives me 7.8 meter. And then you might notice, well, 7.8 meter, that's also what it says here. That's good. But up here, it only said 7.2. That's because when you have the open beam from the projector, it's a bit wider than the maximum image diameter of the gobo. And that's what we have in the table here. That is including, that is the projected surface from a gobo. So you have these reduction parameters, 0.92 and 0.87, if you want to understand what will be my maximum gobo diameter if I use the photometric file that is based on the full open image. Yes. And again, if you are not using the metric system, you can just use feet instead. So it's the same formulas. So you can insert feet here. So if you insert 66 feet, then this calculation will give me the 23.5 feet projection. And if I insert feet here, the result here will come out in candela. So I'll get the 18 candela. So that's fairly simple. So that's a good tool to get a rough understanding of where will or how much of the building at that distance will be illuminated and what will be the illumination level. But still, going out there and get a full understanding is still very recommendable. Another thing that is actually important to understand is that gobo projection is based on a mechanical system. We have a mechanical system. We can rotate the gobo, we can index the gobo, and we can change between gobos. And it's all done using a gear system. And any gear system will have a little air gap between the teeth. If you didn't have this little air gap, then the teeth would wear out within very short time because you would have a lot of friction in the system. So this is normal for any gear system. That this is how you design gear systems. But when we are projecting maybe 50 meters or 200 meters, then this little air gap, this little distance, will actually result in an offset. Let's say we index the gobo and we want it to be perfectly horizontally. Then, if we don't know what happens with this little air, then it can actually mean quite some degrees on the final result on the building if we project, let's say, 100 meters. So what we have in our products is what we call a precise gobo indexing mode, and that will help overcome this mechanical issue, if you want, that we cannot remove from a mechanical point of view. And the idea is that we always index from one rotation direction. So we always index from the counterclockwise. So it means the fixture will always index from the counterclockwise. So it means this teeth will always land on this teeth, and then we can take out this air gap from the equation. However, that only works if you also, as a programmer, program from a counterclock position, because then you understand what you see is also what you get. So it's a little technical, but it's well described, I hope, in the user manual. but it's really important to understand that I would say for most of these applications which we show here in this presentation, you would definitely want to use the precise gobo indexing mode. If it's more like for a show, maybe people will not notice this, and if you talk about traditional moving heads, it's not a big issue. But here, because it's so long distances and it's so critical, it's suddenly become something to consider. And the good thing is there's a way around it that works. But still, when all that is said, we still recommend that if you have a building with some very defined vertical or horizontal, it could be like the window frame that we saw in Switzerland, we would still recommend not to align it too perfectly. Maybe make a little distance, because it's good to have a little tolerance. Also, maybe your fixture will there's just so little room for mistakes if you design your image too tightly. So it's a good idea to maybe incorporate a little bit of tolerance into your gobo design. That's just a good advice. Yeah, and then I think I've been talking for a long time, so I want to give Marcus the word now.
Yes, thanks. Time for you to rest now.
Yeah.
So I start with talking a little bit keystoning. So if the projector is mounted off axis from the projection surface, you need to do a keystone correction, just like a normal video projector. But here you cannot push a button on the projector as on a video projector. To be able to do this, you need to put a grid gobo into the projector and take a picture of the projected surface. I will explain this in the following slides. But first, what is gobo and how is it created? A gobo is a small metal or glass plate where you mechanically or chemically engraves the motif. In an aluminium gobo, it's possible to make a black and white image, and in a glass gobo, up to a full color image. I recommend the glass gobo because it makes sharper images, and the aluminium gobo can distort the image slightly because of the heat from the lamp. There are several companies who make custom gobos. It is important that the graphic material is vector-based or has a really high resolution. And also inform the manufacturer what fixture you're using. In a fixed installation, it's recommended to fix the gobo in the gobo holder with heat-resistant glue so it doesn't move in the holder and gets out of position. Next slide, please. So this is the Nobel Week lights. This was a temporary installation initiated by the Nobel Prize Museum. There were 16 light installations in Stockholm during the Nobel Week to bring awareness to the Nobel Prize. The installation was made with 2 EP1000s, and the designer of this project was Emma Hjortenklev Wassberg and Fredrik Matz. This is the perfect project to show gobo mapping and keystoning, and also the big impact made with only 2 projectors. On picture number 1 here to the left, you can see that the artist, how the artist wanted it to look. And to the right, you can see the canvas and the position of the fixtures. And here's the starting point of gobo mapping. Here you can see the image from 2 EP1000s with a grid gobo selected. The fixture was situated about 45 degrees below the facade. So the need of keystone correction was important here. And also align the 2 projectors into one tall image. As in a regular video projector, you lose beam width when you keystone the image because you can only adjust the image inwards. In this case, we needed to adjust the top of the image inwards to compensate for the steep projection angle. In the coming slides, I will describe how to take a photo and of the projection surface with the grid gobo projected. Here you can see the picture on the left. You can see the grid gobos, as I told you, and also the colors is coming from wash lights on site. And picture number 4 here, you can see where we start to map. Next picture, please. So here's the final result. As you can see, it's white text instead of black, and that's because we're using the already existing wash lights to get the color, and then we needed to put white letters on. And it looks rather good, and it was seen from far away. In this case, we got some help from the Gobo manufacturer Beacom with the mapping. And here we have the latest installation. It's called Matrix in Sundbyberg, Stockholm. This is a permanent installation. The artist Eva Beierheimer has made an artwork called Matrix. There were several artists competing for this installation, most of them with video projector solutions. Eva has made a dynamic projection using 2 EP1000s on the same surface, using the internal color and effect system. And she got much more light output than she would get with a video projector, and of course less maintenance. This installation has really pushed the limits what you can do with Gobo projectors. And as always, it's snowing and storming when we are working on rooftops here in Sweden. This night when we did the photographing for the mapping, it was -10 degrees. Next slide, please. So here you can see Albin working at the first step in Gobo mapping. We have fixed the camera on top of the projector, as you can see here, and to take a photo of the facade with the grid Gobo selected in the first EP1000s. It's good to take a lot of photos with different adjustments in the camera, but always the same positions. And after that, we did the same with projector number 2. Here is the first step after photographing. You bring the picture into Illustrator or another graphical program. You put the grid Gobo file in one layer and the photo in the other layer, and you start to adjust and compensate for the projection angle, and also where you need to cut out for windows and so on. After that, you can start working with the actual graphics. You can see that Eva started work on the artwork here. It's the gray boxes to fit them into the grid Gobo. And then you say send the finished file to the Gobo manufacturer, in this case Beacon.
Maybe also worth to mention here that these are apartments. Maybe you want to.
Yeah, exactly. This is very crucial here to cut out the glare, both on the left and right side, because there are people living there and there's traffic and so on. So it's a perfect solution with the EP1000. Here you can see the final result. This picture is only one of the projectors, but you can see we're mapping out the trees and cutting out the windows and so on. And here, all these 3 images is built up by 2 EP1000s on the same surface. So the artist can work with different effects on each projector and make a dynamic artwork working between them. On the left photo, the first projector has the bluish color and the second projector has the warm color. And then she can work with different effects on both of the projectors. And it's the same procedure on all 3 pictures, so you can have a really dynamic look. This installation was about 70 meters away from the surface, and the image is about 9 meters wide and 18 meters high. When you choose your graphic, it's important to think about the conditions where you're going to install the projectors, because of the wind and snow and rain could distort and move around the picture a little bit. So we have some safe around here so we don't glare into the windows. And also thinking about the mechanical tolerances that Robert spoke about earlier. And it's not a video projector, this is physical analog way.
Marcus, which kind of effects did the designer use besides having 2 Gobos?
all the gobos here are black and white, or in grayscale rather. And then she worked with color systems, and you can see that we get a real deep color, as you see in the center pictures. We built up several colors using different colors on each projector. And also the animation effects is on the left and center. And also the zoom, actually. So we're starting with a small image that builds up to the big image. And to the right is a starry sky. So I think there are actually some videos out on the installation.
Yeah, because of course, we for bandwidth issues, we're not showing videos here, but there are videos where you see the animation of effect that really also adds animation to the images and create some quite spectacular images.
Yeah. And next slide is our Q&A, but you can also see the Noble Week lights, the text to the right on the skyscraper to the right. And
do you know what is the distance here from the building to where?
No, very far away.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yes, that was basically what we wanted to present to you, and we also wanted to keep some time for question and answers. So you're welcome now to add questions, and I believe there are some. So Lane, will you support us on that? Or I can also just read them actually. What do you prefer, Lane? Okay, I'll take the questions. I can see them here. So there's a question about, and that's, I guess a good question. How do you get buy-in from a city council to allow this kind of illumination, considering lighting codes and building regulations for light and animation, especially when a building is near a highway? Marcus, do you have?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be very dynamic all the time. It can be quite static, like graphical artwork, or just like you mentioned earlier, to take away glare problems from highways and so on. And where we have worked mostly with this kind of projects is art installations inside cities. And when it's arts here in Sweden, we can do a little bit more movement and dynamics than in normal facade lighting.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that, of course, it can always be difficult to get these permissions, but still, this is probably a bit more subtle. It can definitely be a bit more subtle than digital video projection, because there you can say in a way you have endless opportunities. Here you are to a certain extent limited, and I think that's sometimes actually a good thing. And I think also some designers appreciate that after they have left the project, it's not like someone can just stick in a USB stick with a complete different content. It's a bit more locked.
And this is also a good thing for the city council, because you cannot have a new commercial or something showing up suddenly because it's fixed. You can only do this. It's quite much work to change it.
Lane, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So did you guys cover the first question?
It did like the first one, yeah. But I don't know if we have any
off-site technical issue. Okay, so
no issue.
So the next question. So you talked about the city council. Is that what I caught on?
Yes,
all right.
Did.
And the next question was, what's the best method for getting new images to the gobos? From Martin. Wireless question. Does that, you guys understand that?
If the question is about how to get the image into the fixture, then it's again important to understand we are talking about a physical product. It's a physical. A gobo is a physical device. It's a glass or metal gobo. So you need physically to install that gobo into the product. This is not video projection, so it's not wireless. It's done by hand, inserting new gobos. So of course it's not like, of course you can change gobos. It is actually rather easy, but you need to go on site. You need to open the fixture. There's a process for inserting the gobos and securing the fixture again, making sure that it's correctly sealed, and you make sure that no humidity is trapped inside the product. So the product is designed for it, but it's not something you would do every day or every week, not at all. But you might want to do it maybe every half year.
Okay, the next question is, can we get a list of local or regional partners we could hire to assist with a project?
I'm sure if you're in Sweden, then Marcus would be happy to help you. But I think it's reaching out to our distributors. They would be able to, either our distributors or our US or EMEA or APAC region, that would be able to find some partners that can help. Like in EMEA region, Marcus is definitely one that we would recommend, and also why he's attending this webinar, because we can see he is doing quality stuff. So
yeah, and I just added our support page for Martin.com, where you can get find out about distributors. You can also you can see repair contacts, technical support, everything you need. Also, can we get a list of software to help us achieve the best results and workflows to produce these kinds of results?
Actually, I use Illustrator, but any kind of photo program where you can work in layers, it's okay.
Vector-based.
Vector-based.
Exactly.
But sometimes I also did photos, full color photos, and it works quite okay.
And I'm going to jump over to, in the chat, there's a question that kind of links to this one. And it says, is there any software for gobo design which can adjust the keystone?
No, you do it manually with the grid gobo and grid gobo file and the photo, and then you bring them together, and then you see how much you need to adjust the keystone. And after that new canvas you get, you start to work with your artwork or letters, or what do you want to project.
But I would say most gobo manufacturers also offers this as a service. So if you instead, our recommendation is definitely to go out and use the grid gobo to get a full understanding of how the light will hit the building. But most gobo manufacturers can also, if you give them your image and you tell them the position of the fixture and the angling of the fixture, they can also do some calculations that will provide the keystoning information into the gobo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Martin have software tools and calculators to determine distance, range, and dimensions, lumens, and overlap of images?
I should say you should use like Dialux or something, and use your light data that you can download from the website. And it's a lot of different 3D programs where you can use those kind of files.
All right. Where do you send your production images to get made into gobo slides?
Yeah, there's several manufacturers. We have Beacon here in Sweden. We have Rosco, Apollo. Do you know some more, Robert?
Yeah, we had in the presentation Inlight Design, and yeah, they are in the presentation. Of course, it's very much a niche industry, and there might be other smaller local manufacturers as well. But the 5 we mentioned in the presentation are the big ones.
Are wash lights also masked for elimination of spill light?
It's a good question. You can say traditionally it's a bit harder to mask a wash light. You can add maybe barn doors, but since it is a soft field, it's not as defined as a projection unit, which basically an image projector is a projection unit. So that's why I said in the beginning that sometimes we actually seen projects where it was so important for the designer that there was absolutely no spill light or any light that did go in any unintentional direction, that then it can actually be recommended to use a profile like the image projectors. Design the gobos and then maybe even defocus it a little bit or add the frost to it, so you get a little soft but still very defined image. But I would say most traditional wash lights do not have that functionality.
Right. Must be interesting to get permission to put your lights on someone else's building and use their power. How did you negotiate that?
Yeah, for fixed installation, the last one called Matrix, it was the building owner, so that one was easy. But yeah, it could be quite a tricky part. Yeah, and it's hard for building owners to know what this is, but we're getting quite much pictures and so on with now.
All right. Is it possible to see any video of some of these examples? Since quite a few of the installations are dynamic in nature or using some color changing or animation, it will be good to get an idea of how the final effect looked like. So is there any video out there?
There are some videos. I don't know how we could link.
I'm considering maybe we could put some links in the presentation before we. No, it's recorded. We can't. What could we do?
Just probably. I mean.
Or maybe in the comments.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Would they probably, if they searched out this installation, could probably find them pretty easy?
Yeah, exactly.
That I think Nobel weeks are definitely one that is. It's
and
not
also, if you Google Matrix in Stockholm, you will probably end up. The thing is, the weather hasn't been so good there, so we're gonna do some more photoing and filming on that one. Too much storms now.
Sure. And I'm just putting this into the chat. Okay. Okay, now next question was, I understand that these are weatherproof versus the lighting fixtures. However, which is cheaper? So, do you guys understand that question? I understand that these are weatherproof versus the lighting.
I'm not sure. I mean, if the question is about why don't you just take a traditional moving head and project a gobo,
right,
then that can be done. You can get like I explained with the video projectors, you can also get enclosures for moving heads or for static lights, static profiles. But again, it just becomes very complex, very delicate if you want, because most likely these enclosures also need to have a climate control, because the fixture itself is not designed for outdoor use. So that's where things just get complicated, and it's and probably also more expensive, even also the initial cost.
And also the service cost on a moving head is it's not made for be on around the clock.
Yeah.
Right. And Bradley's asked a lot of these questions. Thank you, Bradley. And his next two are, so no issues with highway regulations in terms of frame rate for motion, for example, or limitations on brightness?
It happens. Normally, when we do a project like this, we need to tell them how often we're going to do changes, and so it doesn't get so much disco. And when we did a really, really big building in Gothenburg, we started out the first year with no changes. And the second year, we did some minor changes and so on. So we gradually worked it up to a little more dynamic look.
Sure. Bill has a question that says, and he asks, I'm curious about weather elements such as fog and rain, how they affect the mapped images across these great distances.
That could be a problem. Because if you're projecting 200 meters or 100 meters away, and if we have rain or fog, that will dim the image and make it softer. And also wind can be a problem if the fixtures start to move too much.
Sure, yeah. Okay, and I did see something here in the chat. Vinu asks, will it be possible to see, okay, that was the video questions again. And Kersey asks, I wonder, is that text made in one gobo there on a wall?
No, that's 2 gobos. So the top one takes the first 3 rows, and the bottom one takes the next 5 rows.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, did you guys? I was going to see if we had. I think that's the last of our. Oh, I'm sorry. We had a couple more. Let's see. I think that's. I'm curious if you put together a service contract to change the gobos as design evolves over time.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. And also, we always have a service contract because we need to service these fixtures now and then. They are very durable, but it's mechanical parts and you need to clean them. But normally we don't have that service contract for changing the gobos, only to have the artwork working.
Couple of, I don't see any more questions. We'll see if any more come in, but a couple of comments. We are working with the Martin team here in the U.S. on a large project. It's gone very well so far, and we plan to install later this year. So great to hear.
Good. Yeah.
Good.
Also, another thing about videos, would be great to see videos of the most dynamic productions for reference, as we have an opportunity here in Wisconsin and want to approach city regulations people with that idea to get clearance. Robert, I was just thinking wanted to make a quick mention. We have a newsletter, quarterly newsletter called Illuminate that goes out from the Martin team every quarter. And, we may think could get some links to some of these videos in there.
That's a good idea. We could do that. Yeah.
So if you guys take a look at the chat and go back to the beginning there, you'll see the sign up for the Illuminate newsletter if you're not already on it, or it's real easy to find. Just go to martin.com, bottom right corner, all the way down. It'll say sign up for updates, and then you can sign up right there. Well, let's see. Did we have any more? No, we covered highway distractions. I think that is about it, unless you guys have anything else to add.
Well, no. I'm good, I think.
Oh, we do have one more. If we're using a Projector 500, which has fixed beam angles, do we need to use images of the same size to avoid problems with focusing?
The images or the gobos is always the same size. You fill out the gobo, but if you have, you can make a slightly not so big gobo, make it a little bit smaller if you need to have a smaller part projected on a building. It's just like mapping.
Yeah, it's true. If you want to go more narrow than our most narrow, if you are using the Exterior Projection 500, that comes with where you have to select between 4 different beam angles, and you need to go more narrow than our most narrow option, then you can design your gobo smaller, and in that way get a more narrow beam if you want. Yeah,
sure. All right. Well, I think that's going to close us out for today as far as questions go. I want to definitely thank Robert and Marcus for your valuable time today. This has been an incredible presentation. I personally, I've been doing content marketing for Martin for the last few years, and we learn a little bit every time, but I picked up so much from this presentation. So thank you guys both.
It's good to hear.
Great one.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you both. Again, as we mentioned in the beginning, we'll have this presentation out as a recording on our channels in just a few days. If you'd like to go back, watch it again, or of course, share it with a colleague, we'd appreciate it. We also do have other upcoming sessions that you can check out and register for just by going to either martin.com or pro.harman.com. Thanks again, everyone, for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.